are you agnostic about whether Jesus existed?
Yes, I am.
And of course, we come to the big J. Jesus, of course, is the central character in the Christian Bible. And the first major assault on the historicity of Jesus was by this German named Reimarus, who was so scared he couldn't even say it with his own name when he wrote. So he wrote anonymously. And in it, that Jesus is mostly a myth about a failed revolutionary. And since Reimarus in 1768, not one single shred of evidence has come back from Jesus' time. Yes, you probably heard of the James ossuary. This is supposed to be the earliest mention of Jesus in the archaeological record. It says James, the son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Well, since then, of course, it's been declared, at least part of the inscription, to be a forgery. This is the actual earliest hard evidence for the New Testament we have. It's this little fragment called P52. Has not been carbon tested. We don't have anything from Jesus' time, around 30. We don't have anything like that. And then the other Gospels on which people depend for the life of Jesus, you know, your Matthew and your Luke and your Mark, nothing until the 3rd century. You don't have any actual manuscripts until the 3rd and 4th centuries. And then when people say, well, but we have these Roman authors who did say there was such a person as Jesus. Well, yes, but you know what they don't tell you is that all of those manuscripts of those Roman authors are from the medieval period. Here we have a Jesus scholar, a major one, saying that. He buries it in a footnote. You have to wade through hundreds of pages to find that footnote. As with Josephus, so with Tacitus, our observations must be tempered by the fact that the earliest manuscript of the Annals comes from the 11th century. Why didn't you tell us that in the main text? You could have saved yourself, 1,000 pages of drivel. So this is the sad reality of Jesus studies. There is a gap. Jesus lived around 30, and the oldest manuscript we have is from 125. And it doesn't even mention Jesus, by the way. That little scrap I showed you doesn't even have the word Jesus in it. Now, we can reasonably say it's there, but the fact is, we still don't have anything with Jesus in it, from the New Testament until like the 3rd century. Then, how do we know? How do we know what they put in here, what they took out? Well, we don't. But scholars, biblical scholars, for the most part, trying to pretend that they do when they can. Well, they can't. Most Christians don't even read the Bible, or they don't even know what's in it.
And he seemed to have knowledge of what happened in the time of Christ, or the Nazarene Christians. Was it? Did he really have any evidence of that time?
No. No. Again, you have to go back. What's the earliest source we have? It's like 2nd century. That's the earliest we have. We have nothing from Jesus' time around 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, nothing. Not a thing. So it's hard to know. He could have been invented in 100, and by 125 he shows up. You don't know.
And so it's hard to say what is authentic and what isn't sometimes. It's true. And so people have to be cautious all the time, especially of things that were not extracted from actual excavations and under archaeological supervision.
Are you familiar with René Salm, if I'm pronouncing that right? His work suggesting there just wasn't an inhabited Nazareth during the ostensible time of Jesus. What do you think of that?
It's hard to say. I'm an agnostic about that, too. The problem still is that most of our actual sources don't date to the 1st century, even the New Testament sources, because I start with actual hard copies, If you look at the earliest source in the New Testament, it's P52, which is just a little bit of text from the 2nd century. We don't get anything really until the 3rd and 4th centuries. So we have no way to know what was changed or not changed between the 1st century and the time the extant manuscripts we have were copied. And sometimes people will point to Josephus and Tacitus and all that, but the truth is the works of those people, the earliest manuscripts we have are sometimes from the Middle Ages. So it's hard to know, what Christians have interpolated or not into those manuscripts. So when it comes to sources from the first century, we actually have a poverty of sources. I can't tell you much of anything about the first century, and archaeologically, it's very difficult to determine anything about Jesus. There are no documents from his time. So there's a lot of people, of course, trying to say, well, the Gospels were composed in the first century, but the actual manuscripts of those Gospels don't come from the first century. We don't know what has been changed at all.
Are you agnostic about whether Jesus existed?
Yes, I am.